Coach, what an incredible run you guys had this year in the playoffs. What was that journey like for you?
It was great, rewarding. It was a team that was. I'm not sure, sort of certain that too many people thought this kind of thing would happen with this particular team. We had our 14 team that went to the finals in 15, January 15. Everybody kind of expected something like that, and but this team was more of a team. You know, they were really, that team had a lot of talent. This one was just a bunch of guys that worked really, really hard and became really good college players. A lot from Illinois, like from Northern Illinois, and just played lights out in the playoffs, and were really, really good. And my hats off to them, how hard they played and how tough they were, and the resilience they had to go on the road and win 4 games like that. You know, you think, you know, especially NDSU, you know, that's our Alabama or whatever of our division, and our, you know, in our conference are really, really good. And remember, mine's been days when I was in the Big Ten of Ohio State and Michigan. You know, just really, really good team. But to go into their place, you know, and they a lot on the line. They win there, and we won. So it was awesome.
And you had to travel literally from one end of the country to the other end of the country, and you've got all these games week after week, great opponents. It had to be exhilarating but exhausting at the same time. I mean, how much of a physical and emotional toll does that take on a coach?
Emotional more than physical during that time of year. You know, our players, everybody's kind of used to the routine, but you know, that's the one thing you have to do. That, you know, we played a NFL schedule basically. I think we're the only team to play 17 games in Division I. So, but we, you know, you have to kind of take some things out of practice. You really don't want to, but it's probably necessary to have a fresher team on Saturdays. Experimented with some things in pre-practice to help us, you know, with identification and schemes and assignments and responsibilities and all that stuff. So a lot of walkthroughs, kind of run-throughs, pre-practice, and so. Kid players did a really good job of that, and they carried over to practice, and then carried over to Saturday in the game. So I was really, really pleased with that. And then our physicality, you know, our league does that. You know, it's very similar to the Big Ten, and that is, you know, it's a physical conference, and if you can't run the ball, stop the run, you know, tackle, be physical, blockers, you're not gonna win many games. And so that gets us ready to play in the playoffs. And then every Saturday feels like a playoff game in the Missouri Valley. It's just, I don't know how many people realize that in the state of Illinois, but it's the Missouri Valley is really no joke when it comes to college football. It's really a tough league. It's every bit as competitive as it was in the Big Ten, if not more sometimes, you know. But Big Ten, obviously a great league, but this one is too. You know, it's just a great conference. So really, they get you ready for the tournament, and we're ready. You know, just wish we could have found a couple more points.
You guys came as close as you can come to winning it all. A little time has passed since that game, and you've had a little time to process it. Is there still some shucks bitterness there, or are you able to look back now and go, man, we were awesome?
Well, I didn't think we were awesome most of the game, but I thought in the fourth quarter we were. We looked like a team that deserved to win, you know, but for whatever reasons, you know, I told our team after the game, I said, you know, you didn't really, the same thing I told the team in 15, it was a close game as well, but this one is even more so. You know, you didn't really lose the game, you just ran out of time, you know, and and when you're in a tight game like that, you take 20 plays, and I just threw the number out, you take 20 plays, and you make one of those 20 plays, you win the game. And it was probably more than that. You know, there's probably 30 plays in that game that, to the naked eye, maybe not everybody saw, but that were, you know, think back, I haven't watched the game yet on film. You know, I just can't get myself to do that quite yet. I will do that, but it's not yet. And I've been busy with recruiting. But I think it's more like 30 plays. You know, if you make one of those plays, you know, you talk about the last drive of the first half. You know, I thought we lost the game on that drive because I thought, well, they separated themselves with a two-score lead. I think it was a 10-point lead. If not, it was awfully close to that. But we bang touchdown. I mean, we couldn't tackle. We didn't cover. It was just like we weren't there. And I said, man. And then we came out the second half. It was just a completely different game, and in particular the fourth quarter. But so you take that last drive away, or make one of those tackles on that drive. Maybe they don't get in the field, in range to score, and we burn more time off the clock. And we just basically flopped around and didn't get anything done on defense on that particular play. But our kids played really well defensively, particularly in the fourth quarter. But you just gotta, in a game like that, you gotta make those plays, and you can't have fortunately, we didn't lose it on that play either, on those plays. But there were other opportunities for us to win that game. So I would say there was 30 plays you could win that game.
You lost your last regular season game big, and then you're an underdog every week in the playoffs. What's the lesson you take away from this season and what you guys accomplished?
Well, it's being resilient, being physical, being tough, and we weren't that in our last game. We were on a little bit of a roll. We won 3 or 4 in a row, and we were in the playoffs, I think, but just didn't play well. It just was poor on our part, and our opponent had something to do with that as well. But we didn't play well, and I think it was another example of the Missouri Valley. Hey, this is another example. Hey, you don't come ready to play, you're going to get beat. I don't care if you're at home or wherever you're at, you're going to get beat. And that was sometimes you have to relearn those lessons, and we had to do it the hard way and get embarrassed at home, and then get in the playoffs and probably lose a seed, and maybe a bye, and now we have to really. But hey, our guys took ownership of it. Hey, we're here because of us, and now we have to work and play ourselves out of it, and I think we did that.
How fruitful is all the attention you guys got and the deep run you made? How fruitful is that going forward in terms of recruiting and getting kids to want to come here?
Pretty good, pretty fruitful, and when
you've seen it already.
Yeah, in the portal, we had a guy or two, they called us, or they had their position coach call us, or their head coach in high school call us, say, hey, I'd be really interested in that, so that helps us a lot, and it's great exposure for our league, it's great exposure for our university, it's great exposure to for our state, but also it's great exposure for Illinois State University and our football program. So, that'll pay a lot of benefits, throughout the year. And it's really maybe not this recruiting class, but the next one, where you really see another big bump. And our camps should be really well attended, and they usually are, but even more so because it's an easy place to get to, and it's not the first time; it's the second time we played for a national championship now, and so we know how to do this, and so you might want to come someplace where it's great football. You don't have to go far from home, particularly from Illinois or the Midwest.
I want to go back to your Rockford roots for just a minute. You were an East E-Rab. I think your junior year, you guys might have won conference, or you had a really good year your junior year. You were all-state as a linebacker your senior year and played some fullback. What are your memories of what it was like to be in Rockford at that time and be on those East football teams?
I loved growing up in Rockford. All my family obviously is from there. My mom, my dad, and both grandparents and aunts and uncles all lived there. Strange now that most of us live somewhere else. Again, you got to tell me what time this is on so my aunt can watch. She's I think the lone wolf back that still lives there, but life moves on, I guess. But I absolutely loved it. I love going to East High. First of all, the friends I made, and I don't do a great job of keeping up with folks, but I'm not a phone guy. But some of my very best friends and great people, loved them all. Grew up with some great people, and men and women, girls and guys, and it was great. And then my time at Rockford East, I remember growing up and playing junior tackle football. I don't know if they still have that in Rockford. They're still playing middle school football, but I played for the Rockford Boys Club, which we practiced at Twin Sisters Park, which is right down the road. You go up the hill there. It's right there at Rockford East, and then we're looking up the hill and thinking, I want to play there someday. I can hardly wait to have that black helmet with the E-Rebs on the side. and they won a state title. It was maybe arguably one of the greatest teams ever in '74, and I remember that time. Those guys were like rock stars. They still are. They were my heroes as a kid. Great high school players, and then being able to play there and having a great career. Then I had great teachers there. I mean, I can remember all of them, and take me too long to name them all because I remember every one of them, and all my coaches. Coach Stockup and all the Giardini brothers, particularly Gary, who was our defensive coordinator and our athletic director. I got a little closer to him because of that, but I had him in class quite a bit, and all the Giardinis are great guys, and he was awesome. And Coach Stockup was a really important part of my life, and I'll never forget when he died. It was just awful. We were getting ready to play Michigan, and I was didn't have my head in the game very much, but that was tough. But because he made a big. And then Coach Dan Salvi, track and field coach, he took me right out of PE class, and he said, "You're going on track." And I said, "I was thinking baseball." I did both at Lincoln High School, junior high, and I played baseball and did track and did both. And he said, "Now, you play football here, you got to run track." And so I ran track and had a really fun career there, and had great position or event coaches there. I remember Mr. Byers. I had Mr. Swenson, who was one of the guys who trained me. He was a sophomore coach and a varsity coach. He was an excellent coach. And then Mr. Walden, all these people trained me and were part of me. I ran a lot when I wasn't playing football. I was a runner. I had a guy who had asthma, and it took me a long time to get over some of that and to get in condition. But they were very patient, and I had a great experience. I got recruited probably as heavily as I did because I could run, and running track was huge for me. So, and then the instructors our teachers were awesome. Mr. Bowen was our principal, and he called me out of class. I tell you that one. And it was during the recruitment. Oh, I got in trouble because I wasn't thinking about Illinois. He goes, "Brock, now it was out of English class. I think it was Mrs. Calvert's class." And he goes, you gotta give him a chance, go to your state school. And I said, I can't believe it. The principal is giving me a recruiting pitch in his office in the middle of a day. But he was great, and he loved sports and was very, 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 very good administrator. It was awesome, and ran a tight ship, but a very fair and was an awesome guy. So I remember all that stuff, and there's so many people there, and I absolutely loved my days at East, and think back about it. I loved them so much that really my only goal was when I was done playing, I was going to play football as long as I could, and I wanted to go back to East and be a football coach and be a head football coach, and never did that. It was easier for me to go right into college. It's kind of when you get cut in the NFL, it's the end of August, and part of early September, and all the teaching jobs aren't there, and so I became a GA, and I went the college route, and I don't ever regret it. But growing up, I became a social studies instructor. I was taught as a social studies teacher. History and psychology and government were my areas of. I was going to be a classroom teacher and coach, and never did it. I coached college football, so but. That's the kind of influence those people had on me, all of them in that building, and even at Lincoln, I had a great PE teacher, man. I mean, Mr. Vanetti, at the time he was the only one ever to win a state championship in wrestling, and he was awesome. So just had a great, wonderful memories, and I'm sure I had some tough times like all teenagers do, but I really don't remember them. I remember all the things that were great about it, friends and I've had unbelievable support, from and it's hard to believe that we're 50 some years probably removed from that now, 50 years at least, and people still remember. It's pretty cool, and I haven't forgotten. I promise I haven't forgotten all the wonderful people that got me to this point.
You have recruited several Rockford area guys over your tenure here. There are three in particular, though, I want to throw out their names in one at a time and just give me what thought jumps into your mind when I mention these guys? I want to start with a young man who just finished up his rookie year in the NFL with the Ravens, Keandre Jackson of Freeport, defensive back for you, not too long ago. When you think of Keandre, what do you think?
Tough, really tough. He's from Freeport, and he's, Keandre walked on here, and then he didn't come from much, and was really tough, and would really physical guy, even as a safety. This is really a safety-driven game almost now. That guy has to be a really good player. Those two players are how many safety? We usually play for two, and we play a split safety package here, and they have to be good there. And he was really good here, and he was. I was more proud of Keandre what he did off the field in the classroom than what he did on the field, which he was excellent. Obviously, he made it as a rookie. He's doing great. He went from being a very average student to being an excellent student, and he took whatever he had as from a intellectual standpoint and maxed it out. I mean, he became a 3.4, 3.5 student, and he took a lot of pride in it. And I'm really proud of him for that, and because he'll have to be pro in something else than football eventually, because eventually the football deflates for all of us, and we have to become professional in something else. And I think he's put himself in a really good position because he has his degree and got good grades. And you can't look at Keandre Jackson's transcript and say, well, this guy, it talks to me, hard work, dedication. I mean, he really worked hard in college, and more so even classroom than even in the football field. And he works awful hard there. But toughness and his resiliency and his just his tenacity to achieve in whatever he does.
And not long ago, you had another Freeport guy, Zeke Vandenberg, who was one heck of a linebacker for you. When you think back to Zeke, what thoughts go through your mind?
A talented guy, really smart. Sometimes not for his own good, but really smart guy, and was a gifted athlete. Could do a lot of things. Was a guy that would listen and would take coaching, particularly at the end of his career. He was so much better at the end of his career because he gave us permission to coach him, and he turned out to be. He had one of the best seasons we've had here, a single season. It's hard to argue that was one. He led the country in sacks, led the country in TFLs, was a national player of the year on defense, and had a great year. Had a stop in the NFL, and he played in the spring league, so he had opportunities to do that, and just had a great ending to his career, and really maxed out his ability. I thought his junior and senior year. So a lot of pluses, and he just a really good guy, really good kid.
And the third and final guy, you had to know this name was going to pop up. James Robinson, the running back out of Rockford Lutheran. What can you say about the production that he gave you in his time here?
Really good, great player. I would say a great college player. I would tell NFL scouts when they come through here, I said, if we had him at Purdue, we might have won the Rose Bowl. Wow. Because, he was kind of the missing link, a downhill, quick, sudden back. I recruited a guy named Mike Allstott, was a good player from Joliet Catholic. James was obviously a tailback, was a little quicker and a little faster than Mike, but Mike was 255. He was a great player. But this guy had a lot of those. He was from me to you. He was at top speed. It didn't take him long to get there, and he could stop on a dime, change direction, and he was stout. I mean, he's 215, 220 pound back, and he's 5'9". He's not 6'2", so he was really good. And we had a really good kicker here, Sean Slattery. Yeah, Rockford Boylan, and Sean hit a field goal against Northwestern that won a game, a big game here, and probably since our North Dakota State win this year, maybe one of the biggest wins in our school's history here. I mean, he hit a big field goal. So
College football has changed rapidly and drastically in recent years with the portal and NIL. How well have you been able to, I don't know if embrace might be too strong of a word, but adjust to all these changes? Are you willing to continue to deal with the uncertainty of college football?
It's a lot now. Most of my job here, we don't have GMs, in FCS. Some people do, but I'm the GM and the head coach, and I felt I needed to take control of the roster, because that's roster management is the NIL and all that stuff, and now it's called revenue sharing. What the university gives is revenue sharing. Things outside of that is NIL. That's huge now. The transfer portal's different. We really benefited from top players in my old stomping when I was a Big Ten or whatever, and when you could only go down, or else you had to sit out. We really benefited from that. So we have done the transfer thing for a while. We didn't do a lot of it, but here and there we had a great quarterback here named Trey Roberson from Indiana, who was a runner-up to Big Ten Player of the Year as a freshman, and he was a very good player here. I don't think Trey Roberson comes here again anymore, because he would have had a lot of options and a lot of money on the table. So that's completely changed. I like it from the fact that a player in our I hate to lose anybody, but I particularly lose a kid that's a depth piece, for you. You like to have those guys around, but I understand that, and I think I get it for most of the guys that get in, at least from our place, they want to play, and so I totally support that. I totally get that. That's good for them, and it can be good for us, but some of this idea of using the portal like free agency, that's what's kind of come to now, and the money that's being thrown out there, it's really out of control, in my opinion. But I guess if you got to compete, and I complain about it when I go home at night, but she listens to me. But I come back to work, either accept it and hey, this is part of the world we live in now, or you retire. And so I'm not ready to retire yet. So I've kind of embraced it and try to make it work for us. It's some been really good. Most of it's been very good for us. Some of it not so good. But it is what it is. It can be very frustrating at times. It's very expensive. I don't know if people realize, we haven't lost a lot of players here, but I can't imagine what a place like when I read about Iowa State, for example, and all those players they had to replace. That you know how much that costs, and to put a kid on an airplane within the recruiting process is like 2 or 3 days. That's it. Most of the time it's at least it could be 2 or 3 years of recruiting out of high school. It could be 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 months at least. And now it's 2 or 3 days, and you got to make these decisions and you make mistakes, and that can be a problem. But we got to. Everybody's got to pick up their game and speed up their game now, and we don't have all this time. We got to get to know this person as fast as we can. We got to get as much information as we can, and all hands on deck. So we didn't go to the convention this year, and we can't. It's during the portal. We'd have to replace some of these guys. So it's a lot of work, but you'd be stunned how much money is spent. Trying to replace these guys. It's a lot of money.
You've completed 17 seasons here, going on number 18 coming up. Obviously, you like it here. What is it about this university and this community that makes it the right fit for Brock Spack?
Well, I think back to my Rockford East days. Coach Stalkup and Coach Giardini were best friends, and that was probably the greatest gift they gave all of us that went through there. You got to see what two guys who are best friends and how they got along, and they're best friends, and they both played here, and Coach Giardini was a wrestler too, and here he wrestled and played football, so they both played football here, and there's quite a few. I for some strange reason, when I came into my press conference, or my introductory press conference here, I said to him, I said, some weird way I'm paying those guys back, you know, and of course Mr. Salvi, I don't think he was an Illinois State alum, but all those guys were there. But particularly the football side of it, you know, Coach Giardini, Gary Giardini, and Craig Stalkup were huge people in my life, and put me on this track to be a coach. I became a coach because of them, and of course Coach Salvi. You know, it was, and they're both Illinois State alums. So some strange, weird way, I feel like I'm paying them back by being a coach here and leading our program into uncharted waters, I guess. And it's been awesome to think about all this. I wish Coach Stalkup could have been alive to see it, but he wasn't. But I know Coach Giardini was, and he's talked to me a few times, and it's been awesome. But some weird way, so you know, I just thought this is, and I really never came across anything I wanted to do, you know, and have I had opportunities? Sure, you know. I don't really talk about it much, you know, but yeah, I have, and I'm not motivated by money. I'm like anybody else. I'd love to make a good living, you know. Obviously, we all want to do that, but that's I'd be lying if I said it was anything different. But it's not the main motivator. The main motivator for me is taking a place that hasn't had a consistent success and turn it into a football power. And I think we've gotten to that point. You know, we've done it twice, and I want to do it a third now just because I want to try to win this game, try to find a way to score one more point or 2 more points. And so it's just been a labor of love. I'm an Illinois guy. I grew up on the fields of Illinois. Kind of wanted to end it on the fields of Illinois, and because my college days were spent in Indiana, but my rest of my beginning of my life and the end of my life has been here. So that's what I don't know what else to say. You know, it's just pride of the home front, and I speak the language. I'm a D's and Do's guy. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs. Sorry, Sox fans, but just grew up on that, and that's part of our culture here in Bloomington Normal. It's just they speak my language, you know, and I understand the language.